It's new play day on Shakesyear, new play day on Shakesyear, new play day on Shakesyear. Woohoo! We are starting in with The Two Gentlemen of Verona. That is another The play as we continue this long fall/winter of the plays. But anyway, yes, this is another comedy that we have coming up in front of us, and it is another play full of heteronormative relationships and love triangles and that sort of thing. So I apologize in advance, and I encourage you, as you are putting on your own production of The Two Gentlemen of Verona, that you mess with the genders and see what happens. But so anyway, knowing that it is a play about heteronormative relationships, yeah, we kick things off in Act 1, Scene 1. We don't get to hear a monologue in Act 1, Scene 1 because it's quick dialogue. I mean, this is a comedy, and we've seen that oftentimes in his comedies, that the dialogue is much more rapid fire and there's shorter lines and there aren't as many monologues, just to keep the rhythm of the thing going. When things get to be a little bit farcical or silly or over the top, just the dialogue moves a lot faster. So today we're going to hear a monologue from Act 1, Scene 2 from Julia, but first we need to set the scene in Act 1, Scene 1. So Act 1, Scene 1, we start out with Proteus and Valentine, who are two gentlemen who live in Verona. Crazy, that's where the title of the play comes from. But anyway, Proteus and Valentine are very good friends, but Valentine wants to go off and see the world. He wants to be scholarly and go off and learn things and see things that he's never seen. So they kick off the play by saying goodbye to each other as Valentine is getting ready to leave. I think first he's going to go to Milan, but I think that he has grander plans than that. We'll find out why Milan is important later. But yeah, he's saying goodbye to his friend Proteus, and Proteus is saying goodbye to him, and they're saying let's stay in touch. And then they get into chiding each other just a smidge because Proteus is very much in love, and Valentine thinks that people who fall in love are a little bit silly, which, this is also reminding me a smidge of Much Ado About Nothing in that respect. So anyway, we've got the person of the mind, who is Valentine, and we have the person of the heart, who is Proteus. And Valentine, a little bit of banter into the play, he sets off, and Proteus is like, oh, but I am so in love. I'm so in love with Julia. She's so wonderful. I hope she got my letter. And then Speed comes in. This person named Speed is Valentine's servant, but Proteus had given Speed a letter to give to Julia, like a courtship type letter, like passing notes in class, except they're not in class together. And Speed comes back just as Valentine has left, and Proteus is like, did you give her my letter? And Speed is like, well, yeah. And there's this whole exchange there's lots of wordplay in all of this because it's a comedy. There's wordplay that Speed is looking for Valentine, and Proteus is like, oh, you're looking for your shepherd, so you must be a sheep. And then there's all this back and forth about, trying to do almost mathematical proofs as to how Speed is or is not a sheep. And once they're done with that, he's like, but anyway, did you give my letter to Julia? And Speed is like, yeah, but she didn't pay me for it. And then there's this whole back and forth between, like, who should be giving Speed money for delivering these messages back and forth. And Speed doesn't want to share what Julia said and doesn't want to give like any sort of inkling to Proteus in terms of what happened in that respect until Proteus coughs up some money. So Proteus finally does, and it turns out that Julia really didn't say a whole lot in response to the letter, which kind of irritates Proteus. And Speed takes off to go after Valentine, and Proteus is like, she probably isn't accepting my letters when they're coming from somebody as sad and pathetic as Speed. And that's the end of Act 1, Scene 1. So now Act 1, Scene 2, we get to meet Julia, and she's hanging out with her like lady-in-waiting Lucetta, and they are talking back and forth about all of the men who are trying to woo Julia right now. And Julia's like, well, which one would you pick? And Lucetta's like, name them, and I'll tell you what I think of them. So she starts going down the list, and Lucetta's like, this guy's meh, and that guy's meh. And when they get to Proteus, Lucetta's like, hoo, hoo, hoo. And Julia's like, wait, what? Why him? And it turns out Lucetta thinks that Proteus loves Julia more than any of the other suitors and is therefore the most worthy of Julia's love above all of her other suitors. And Julia's like, but he's never actually even said anything to me. And Lucetta's like, but he sent you this letter. And Julia's like, what? You didn't give me this? You didn't give me the letter? And there's this little tiff about that. And Lucetta actually ends up leaving with the letter without actually showing it to Julia. Julia gets in such a huff about it. She's like, well, take it away. I don't even want to see it. So Lucetta leaves, and then Julia says, and yet I would I had o'erlooked the letter. It were a shame to call her back again, and pray her to a fault for which I chid her. What fool is she that knows I am a maid and would not force the letter to my view? Since maids, in modesty, say no to that which they would have the preferer construe, fie, how wayward is this foolish love, that like a testy babe will scratch the nurse, and presently all humbled kiss the rod. How churlishly I chid Lucetta hence, when willingly I would have had her here. How angrily I taught my brow to frown, when inward joy enforced my heart to smile. My penance is to call Lucetta back and ask remission for my folly past. What ho, Lucetta! And that's that monologue. So what she sent Lucetta away with this letter in a huff, and then she was like, that was a really dumb idea, because I would have liked to see the letter. But wasn't that her bad for not making me see the letter? Because it's a letter for me, and she should know that ladies, proper ladies like me, are supposed to say no to the things that we really want. You know, I'm supposed to run hot and cold like that. So how silly of it was her to go away. And then she's like, I really was mean when I sent her away, so I guess I'm going to have to make up for it by calling her back in. So she calls Lucetta back in, and Lucetta comes in, and my guess is that if you were staging this, Lucetta would come back in like, what do you need? Can I help you? And Julia's like, what time is dinner? And that's as good a place to stop as any, because tomorrow we get to hear more from Julia in Act 1, Scene 2. So we'll stop with this nice little interplay and exchange between Lucetta and Julia. But yeah, come on back tomorrow for more, because there's plenty left to go before we get to the end of this play about these two gentlemen in Verona.